development for you?
Yeah, I think we were, cautious with him in terms of making sure that we didn't bring him back too soon. Sometimes these soft tissue injuries, especially with guys that aren't around for the full amount of time during the summer, and that's one of the things that's, so valuable about having these young men here in the summer is you get so far ahead in terms of their level of conditioning, and oftentimes it's the guys that kind of come in late that end up with these little nagging things, and so I think we took the appropriate amount of time with him. I really believe that he's going to be a difference maker. I think he flashed early in camp, and obviously sat out on Saturday, but I think he'll be ready to go tomorrow full speed again, and we'll. I think it's going to create some more competition in that wide receiver room. I think he showed really good ball skills. He's a smart kid. He's a fast learner, and so I think he's a guy that's I believe an upgrade for us at that position.
There's a lot of talk through camp, obviously, about position battles and skill guys, but do you feel like the defensive front and the offensive front can be two of the strengths of this roster?
I think they need to be. I really feel good about our offensive line. I think our first 5 and 6, I'd throw Lewis Kidd as a guy that's really starting to mature and grow and develop. And we've got some young kids that we talked about throughout the course of camp, whether that be Zach Red or Zach Red, yes. Redwood is what Tafalele calls him. So Zach Red or Connor Wood are guys that I think both have opportunities to provide us with really quality depth. And on the defensive line, there's a lot of really good battles. I mean, I think, by nature, we're going to play a lot of guys there. So the starter doesn't mean that much. I mean, hopefully you got enough bodies that you can roll guys, especially when we play up-tempo teams like Washington State, and be able to keep those guys fresh. And I think you'll see, 8 or 9 guys playing on the interior defensive line pretty much regularly as long as we can stay healthy.
When it's a young guy like Derek Marks or Marcus Farragut, they were thrust into action last year. What is the difference that you see then at this point in camp with those guys?
I think now we can get to some details. It's all big picture, making sure they're aligned correctly, that their eyes are in the right spot, and now we can start to work with them on some of the nuances of the position. And those guys are really smart, tough, good players, and they take to coaching very well. And there's some good competition in there right now. I mean, I think Tyrone's finding that, as much as he had a great fall camp a year ago, he's missed a lot of time, and it's he's struggling to kind of crack back into that number 1 group, and I know that's a goal of his, and so that's only going to make that whole room better.
You talked about the timeline of the culture building. Basically, you said how long it takes to build a culture. Do you see the signs of that, of really what you want now, since you're through phase 1 of year 2?
Yeah, I think I put a self-imposed deadline of 18 months, meaning August 1st of this year. Everybody in this program had to be bought in to what we were trying to do, and I feel strongly that that's the case. Obviously we're bringing some young kids in here, but when they're trained a certain way and the expectations are what they are, they don't know any different, and it makes it so much easier to gain traction because of that. And I think we've got some really good leaders that understand what we're trying to do, and I feel strongly that we've made that stride, that we've imprinted that culture, and now the next step is we've got to go put a good product on the field, and we've got to go compete the right way.
And just going over, could you just kind of explain what Ride for the Brand means?
It's just living for something larger than yourself, not making it about you as an individual, but really about the team. And I think that's something that in this day and age, and I'm getting old, and so I call them millennials now, but this microwave society that we live in, and hard is bad. If it takes a long time, it's bad. And what we're trying to do is get these guys to understand that that's not bad, that doing things the hard way is the right way. And that's part of riding for the brand, is being willing to push through some of the adversity and some of the challenges, so that the people around you understand that you're there for the long haul, and you're gonna do a day's work for a day's pay.
I know you've talked about it already in camp, but with Chad and Gunner leaving, maybe can you talk about the tenor of the running back room and what you're seeing out of those guys?
Yeah, I think Coach Petrie's got to earn his money now. I mean, he's the first one to even say that. I think I realized how fortunate he was to have not just 2 good players, but 2 guys that really set the tone for the entire room. And I think Michael's done a really good job with this young group. It's a very interesting group. I mean, that's an entertaining room now. You got kids from Compton, California, and Florida, and Dillon, Montana, and Kalispell. There's kind of just a real, almost a melting pot in that room. And so there's a lot of personality. I think there's a lot of young talent. And I think he's doing a nice job of getting those kids to really understand what their role is, and to buy into our culture and the things that we want to do.
He's one of the longer tenured guys on their staff here, if not the longest. What does he bring to this team, maybe outside of that running back room too?
Well, he's a recruiting coordinator, and I think that what I liked about Michael is Michael had been in Power 5 program. He was recruited to UCLA, so he understood that part of the process. He was at the University of Colorado as a graduate assistant, and when Coach McIntyre was trying to build that thing, and a big part of building a program is the recruiting process. And so that's one of the things I think Michael really brings to the table, is kind of a little bit of a next level philosophy that really fits with what I want to do in terms of the recruiting style. And then the other thing about Michael is I think he takes his job as a mentor very seriously. He develops really strong relationships with his players. It's not what I call transactional, it's transformational. He wants to see these young men grow on and off the field, and so I really appreciate that about him.
It's Coach Armstrong's first season as the OC. What do you like about him as a coach? What qualities does he bring?
He's got an even temperament. He's been a head coach, and so he doesn't get high or low. And I think that's a really important thing at that coordinator position, because whether I'm the one that's, on the phones yelling at him, or we've got a critical situation, he's got to be able to have poise. And so I think like I said, he's got a very even temperament. He's got a good sense of humor, so he doesn't think, things kind of bounce off of him a little bit, and I think that's important. I think I trust the guy. I've known him for a long time, and that's an important thing for me, to know that if I need something done, I know exactly how it's going to be done when I ask Brian to do it. And the other thing I think that maybe people don't appreciate, the guy's a creative mind. He's not an in-the-box thinker. I mean, he's going to be able to take the pieces of our offense and the playmakers in our offense and put those guys in situations to have success.
Do you think are you starting to make any progress in the quarterback room in terms of the pecking order behind Chris?
Chris hasn't begun that starting job yet either, has he, Parker? I mean, you hear that?
Well, you've been
hot off the press. No, I'm
Chris Murray is the starter.
No, yeah, I agree that Chris is definitely the leader in the clubhouse right now. But
took all the second teams there in the majority.
He did, and I think that's part of it was his production in the scrimmage too. Yeah. And so I think we've kind of got a sliding depth chart there, sure. and it's kind of been that way, and really, by design, we've kind of tried to do that through the first two scrimmages, because I think, in fairness to all of those young men, there's some mixing and matching sometimes of personnel that you may be throwing the ball to the right guy and it may be a dime, but if it's a 3rd and 10 and the guy drops the ball, well, now your reps are over. You got 3 on that set, and then the next set, the guys around you execute a little bit better, and now, hey, you've had an opportunity to kind of stretch out a little bit in terms of the reps, and so we'll kind of keep the rotation going a little bit through the Saturday, and then obviously we've got to make some decisions, and I think this is an interesting one, because I think there's the aspect of it that is what's best for the individual, right. And then there's also the aspect of it what's best for our program, not just now but in the future. And so all of those things are going to go into our discussions, and I think it's good that we've had as good a competition as we have there, and I think that bodes well for our future, regardless of who ends up being the number 2.
Do you sense that some of the young guys, obviously Brady kind of knows his role, but that the freshmen in the room and Luke understand maybe what that looks like if they were to asked to travel and do all that and play that?
Yeah, well, I think what we try to do is, and I mentioned this maybe before in the past, but we get through that second scrimmage, and that Saturday, we sit down, every single position coach sits down with every player in the room, and we call it the roll call meeting, and basically it's where exactly what you're talking about, we paint it as clear as we can in terms of this is what the expectation is, here's what your role's going to be, here's how we see this developing, this is what you need to be ready to do. And I think that helps them, and so it also helps them because we tell them that up front, right. So it's not like they're worried about that pecking order so much through the first 10-12 days of fall camp. They can just go play, let the chips fall where they may, and then we'll let you know where you stand.
You've mentioned the Glacier kids. I think you've got 6 of them on your roster now. Is there something in that program that you've seen that's allowed them to be the talent, the players they are?
Well, I think Grady's done a really good job, and not just because they've won football games. You talk about culture. He's embedded a culture up there that these kids they're all high character kids, hardworking, disciplined. They're good football players. There's a lot to recruiting young men from winning programs. There's a lot to that, because they understand that you don't win games starting on August 2nd like we did this year. You win the games with the grinding work that you put in the winter and the summer. And I think when you get young men, whether it's Kalispell Glacier or Bozeman High or Billings Senior, some of these elite AA programs that have been kind of consistently in the upper echelon, there's a reason why you see our roster packed with a lot of those guys. It's by design. Winners know how to win, and for us to take the next step and get over the hump, we've got to have winners.
Coach, when you talk about that roll call meeting, how important is it with the depth at running back, depth at receiver? How important is the special teams to getting on that bus?
It's huge, and I'm sure you can appreciate that, Brooks, having that probably be a large part of your role early in your career. And so those are the hardest conversations, because we could say, okay, these are the 2 deep, and then you go, yeah, but I need that guy because he's invaluable to us in the kicking game. And so the good news is, early in the season, we're going to have the luxury to be able to travel with an expanded roster, and then we have a home game in non-conference. And so, we'll take 70 to Washington State. We can suit up as many as we want for South Dakota State. and then we get to that bye week. And so I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on. You may see some guys that get out there and get their feet wet a little bit and get baptized, so to speak, up there in Pullman, and see how they respond. And if they continue to grow and respond the way we have, you know, I think, you know, one guy that stands out to me that's a guy that's kind of in that battle right now is Tatum Gilman. You know, he's you know, we've got some veteran guys at linebacker, but man, that guy's done some great things in the kicking game. And so, you know, he's a guy that, you know, but again, as we talked about with the quarterbacks, it's still that balancing act between what's best for the program and what's best for the individual, and hopefully we can find that middle ground.